Salman, how's it going, my friend? Good to have you here.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Hey, AWS Glue is an amazing service. Can you tell us more about what you're here? It's Glue streaming.
So I'm here to share with you my real excitement and share the launch of two great features that our customers have been eagerly waiting for. First is the launch of smaller instances to handle low volume and simple ETL streaming workloads at one quarter of the cost. And second, the launch of autoscaling for streaming workloads, which gives streaming jobs ability to scale up and down based on the load on the streaming source. Scale the resource down when there is a reduced load or no load at all, and scale back up when there is new data or the volume increases, and by that, reduce overall cost of streaming workloads and pass the savings back to the customers.
That's really cool. So it really helps the customers. What is it? We have the well-architected framework, and cost optimization is one of those pillars. So it helps them align to the cost optimization to help them save. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Yes.
So Glue is our ETL or elastic or extract, transform, and load service, and it really helps to make it easy to set up continuous ingestion pipelines. Is that correct?
Correct. Customers use streaming ETL to process streaming data from different sources such as IoT event stream, click stream, change data capture, which is also known as CDC stream, network, and security events that require streaming ETL jobs to always be running with resource provisioned to handle peak time loads. And this over time can make streaming ETL pretty expensive, especially for customers with low or sporadic streaming loads. One of our financial companies needed to process large real-time stream of complex events to identify fraudulent logins to their website and block those as fast as possible. To do this, customer used AWS Glue Streaming ETL, which handled the case very well. However, over time, they observed that event volume outside of business hours was significantly lower than the volume throughout the day. That resulted in additional cost for over-provisioned resources for half of the time. Customer wanted us to provide optimization for streaming workloads such that resources can scale down when stream volume is low and data can be handled by smaller amount of resources to reduce cost of those always running workloads. And with the launch of autoscaling and smaller instance type for streaming ETL, customers can now run streaming jobs at one quarter of the cost. And with autoscaling enabled, job resources will now automatically scale down when there is no data to process. And as I said, will scale up with new data arriving, passing significant costs back to the customer.
That's really awesome to be able to pass that significant cost back to the customer and also at the same time help them reduce latency between maybe the time events are ready for processing and the time the data is ready itself too. So Glue streaming sounds really powerful.
Absolutely. Let me tell you a bit about the Glue and Glue streaming. And I don't know if the audience know, but AWS Glue is a serverless data integration service that makes it easy to discover, prepare, and combine data for analytics and machine learnings. Now, Glue streaming, in turn, is a feature of Glue. It focuses on streaming sources and makes it easy to continuously ingest or create continuous pipelines that prepare streaming data on the fly and make it available for analysis and machine learning within seconds. Streaming jobs can consume data from various sources such as Amazon Kinesis, managed Kafka, MSK, Apache Kafka, Confluent Kafka, and prepare the data on the fly and continuously load the data to data lakes on S3 or data warehouses or any other target storage. What's special about Glue streaming is that it reduces the latency between the time events are ready for processing and the time the data is ready for analysis and machine learning, allowing customers to act and make decisions at near real-time speed. Additionally, Glue streaming provides ability to process complex events by looking at group of events over consecutive timeframes instead of just looking at single occurrence of an event. And Glue streaming can help with this type of use cases. And as I mentioned previously, large fintech company uses Glue streaming to process weblogs to detect fraudulent activity and react quickly to block malicious users as soon as possible. This use case is not suitable for batch processing mode, where there are much larger delays between the time the data is collected for processing and the time the data is available for decision making.
That's really awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through that and the differences between Glue and specifically Glue streaming. We have actually a question in the chat. Let me see if I can get that pulled up here. Give me 1 second. Let's see here. So, what is that? Babiera SA. Let me go ahead and pull this up. How can Glue connect to external data sources like an on-prem Kafka stream? Are you able to talk about that?
Absolutely, and that's a great question, and that's one of very popular connectors, and many of our customers utilize that connector. So Glue, and that's something I wanted to speak in a minute, since Glue development ecosystem provides a variety of connectors. And specifically, we've invested a lot in developing specifically Kafka connector and many of its features, since it's such a popular streaming platform. So creating a connection to a Kafka on-prem is pretty straightforward. Of course, you need to define the VPN, but through Glue Studio, you can easily navigate through a few clicks and create that connection to your Kafka on-prem with many authentication possibilities, such as SSL certificates and client authentication. Recently, we even launched support for SASL and Scrum support for Kafka authentication. I hope that answers your question.
That's really cool. Yeah, thank you. Let us know in the chat if he answered your question. Really do appreciate all the questions. We also have subject matter experts or SMEs that are here to help as well. So type your questions in the chat. We are watching them. Let's go ahead and move on. So when would customers use Glue streaming? We talked about that just now, but what are some use cases for them?
So sure, let me expand on that. So the main reason customers choose Glue streaming is, the Glue platform is the development and operational ecosystem Glue provides to engineers and data scientists to build, test, run, and operate their ETL workloads. Glue offers integration with a variety of connectors, just like I mentioned, and to different data sources. Engineers can use Glue to handle different data processing models, batch, streaming, complex event processing, without them having to learn new technology. This allows them to centralize all their ETL jobs in one place. With Glue, with Glue development tools such as Glue Studio, customers can easily develop ETL workloads visually with minimum to no coding. And with Glue interactive sessions, customers can interactively develop and test their workloads. And lastly, they prefer AWS Glue streaming because they need to have heavy-duty processing of complex ETL, such as joining multiple streaming and static sources, apply complex transformations and aggregation logic on time series event to act on a group of events over periods of time. And I think those are all great things that brings customers to use Glue and the Glue development framework to develop their ETL needs.
That's really cool. I love the ability that we are giving our customers to use this service to expedite their workloads, to do more for their customers, to help create and innovate on their own while simplifying the entire process because it's one of those managed services for them. So awesome. Thanks for being here. I think Seema was going to ask a question.
Yeah, so after hearing all of this, I'm curious to know if there are more features that are launching with this Amazon Glue.
We're launching new features all the time. The best place to track new feature announcements is, of course, the AWS What's New announcements. So interactive sessions is a recent feature that customers heavily adopted. We heavily investing in Glue Studio development to improve the user experience and reduce the barrier for non-engineers for adoption, so that data scientists, data analysts can easily create and develop their ETL workloads and have one place for all their ETL needs.
That is really cool. And you know what? I see one more person in the chat here. Lucy from LinkedIn is asking for a demo. Demo is being beckoned. Do you have anything for us today?
Absolutely. And I actually
All right.
I actually prepared a demo that I will demonstrate a very simplified use case to demonstrate how easy it is to develop a streaming ETL, and as well how can you utilize the new features that we've just released. So give me 1 second. I'll take a sip of water.
Take your time. In the meantime, if you have any
Doing a lot of
questions, or
talking
if anyone has questions, type them in the chat. We do have people who are watching. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and type in the chat as well. Let me do that. Give me a second here. I'm going to pull my own question, my own thing up. It's demo time, everyone. Let's go.
All right. So let's imagine we have a retail store that wants to stream their orders to data lake for analytics, machine learning, and so on. But at the same time, they want to flag specific orders that are above specific threshold. For example, above specific purchase amount to flag them for review or for fraud analysis. So let's develop that ETL script. So for that, by the way, my screen is visible, I presume. Just need an acknowledgement. Thank you.
I can see it, but you know what? Let's see if everyone else can see it. If you can see Roman's screen, go ahead and type your favorite emoji in the chat. Let's see who's out there. Do it, everyone. Do it. Favorite emojis, thumbs up, thumbs down. Maybe a laughing person, an animal. I don't know, a tiger, a cat, a dog, dancing fries.
That's amazing.
Here they come. I see them all. Okay, we're getting confirmation. Our viewers can see your screen. Let's go.
Perfect. So let's get going. So we'll start with a blank canvas. There are many options here that you can choose. You can choose a pre-populated default script. But for this purpose, or you can even use Jupyter Notebook, as I've mentioned, for interactive development. But for this demo, we'll use a blank canvas. So we have our canvas here. It's blank, as I said. And of course, we're going to start with the source. As a question that was brought up earlier, can we connect to Kafka? As you can see, we have many connectors here that you can choose and use out of the box without any additional configuration. For this demo, we're going to use Amazon Kinesis. And it is, most of the data is pre-populated here. So I'm going to choose a stream that I've pre-created ahead of time. And that's our Kinesis stream, where we'll be streaming our orders data. And the format is going to be JSON. And I definitely want to start from the earliest message in the stream. There are various options. You can also start from the latest. But to keep things simple, we will use the earliest. Also, I would like to change my micro batch processing mode to 30 seconds instead of 100 seconds. And customers can change it the way they like it. What it means is that the streaming job will trigger micro batch processing every 30 seconds and push the data to our data lake at that frequency. It's also worth mentioning, so we have our source, that streaming ETL can automatically detect the schema of the payload that is coming from the streaming source. We've just mentioned the data format, but streaming workload will automatically detect the payload and will construct a data frame, which, in other words, is a representation of a table that consists of columns and rows on which we can operate, create transformations, and so on. So let's add a transformation. As you can see, there are many available out-of-the-box transformation that you can use, such as drop fields, validate fields, nullify fields. But for this demo, we're going to use a very popular transformation, which is a Sql transformation that allows us to write Sql transformations and what's better than SQL for data scientists? So we're going to change the query, and I actually prepared that query ahead of time. It's going to be a very simple query. So we're going to change it, and we just do the following. So we're going to select all the data that's coming through the stream, but we're also going to enhance the data by adding another field called flagged order. And that has a very simple condition. When the amount on the order is higher than 900, let's put the value of 1, denotes a flag that this order needs to be reviewed, and otherwise 0. Now, it's worth mentioning it's a very simple transformation here, but customers can apply much more complex transformation. For example, another popular transformation is, for example, if you have IP addresses on the source that is very used for orders or for security and network events, you can actually join the data with geolocation data that will actually give you the location of the place or the source that data is arriving from, and again, for analytical purposes and so on. So we added our transformation. So what's remaining is that let's add a target. And as I've mentioned, our target is going to be an S3, also in JSON format. So we're going to choose one of my buckets, and we're going to create a folder. Let's call it orders for review. And I'm also going to choose to create a table in data catalog and update the schema and add partitions. What that actually tells the ETL process is actually register a table in Glue catalog, register its schema, so that this folder that we're creating in data lake on S3 can be queried through the Athena engine and treated as a SQL table. So I'll pick a database and let's give it a name, orders for review. And that practically completes the design of our ETL. So what's remaining is, let's give it a name. Let's call it orders for review. I'll need to choose a role to run this ETL. It's already identified this job type to be as Spark streaming, since we've chosen a source, streaming source, Kinesis. And now I'm coming to the most interesting part here. Before the announcements we made, the new features we released, you had to choose G1X. That was the minimal instance type or resource that you can use for that. But as I've mentioned, I know that since I'm a retail store, my streaming patterns are very different, right? Usually I see a lot of orders throughout morning before people hit the work. Then there is a slowdown over the business hours, and there is a large increase in volume in the evening. And again, over the night is pretty slow. So that's a great use case for the G2X GPU that is at reduced capacity. And all I need to enable autoscaling is just check that check mark. And autoscaling will be automatically enabled for you. Now let's assume that I have very busy days, and since my streaming job is going to be running continuously for days and days, and by the way, we have customers that running streaming workloads for over a year without interruption. So I need to be prepared to handle peak load times. And we've computed, and I will not get into that, that's probably worth another talk, how we size the maximum resource required for streaming workloads at some other time. But let's assume I need 20 workers at the peak time. And that's what I'm going to choose. Now, with autoscaling enabled, I don't need to worry that I have maximum compute power allocated 24/7. Streaming job will automatically scale up and down based on the load on the streaming source. So that's that. Let's save the job and try to run it. And if everything goes well, the job should run. So let's switch to the run view. And for now, it shows that it's running. Let me quickly walk you through uh, the job run view. So there are a few parameters that you can see here, such as job name, a job run ID that is generated that will switch to in a minute to show some metrics, job status, the Glue version that is being used. You can see the start time and startup time, for example. The interesting part to pay attention to is that you can see we're using the worker type that is G2X. We have maximum workers as allocated 20, and the maximum capacity is 5 DPUs. Now, DPU, what we call it, is data processing unit. It's amount of compute power and memory designated for this ETL. You can
Yeah,
also
are we
see,
able to maybe compare the savings? Because we do want to hear everything you have to say. We have a couple of questions we also want to get to from the chat, but how can we compare the savings and how much you were able to save by using Glue Streaming with
uh,
this maybe even like a quarter DPU?
can I get to that in a minute because I'm almost wrapping up.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
please keep me honest. If we're out of time, then I can switch to that. Uh, so now that our job is running, we let's put some data into our stream. And one of the great tools that we're using to simulate streaming loads is Amazon Kinesis data generator that allows us to create a different templates to simulate customer payloads, or even for developers, they can simulate different payloads and test their streaming ETLs. So let me log in here. And as you can see, I can pre-select my region and my stream. I can also create a template. So for this demonstration, I create a very simple template that consists of order ID, IP, product, and some other fields. And I can now just start sending data. And that will actually test my streaming ETL workload. So while we're streaming data, let's go back to Studio. And once you click on the job ID, you also have the metrics panel that has some key metrics for you to track. Now, since for this job to get the metrics populated, it's going to take some time. So that's why I pre-run another job ahead of time, and I'll show you some of the metrics on that job. So here you see metrics for a job that I on purpose run for a day for this use case specifically. And one of the key elements here that you can see is the ETL data movement in bytes or in sites. And you can see this ETL is pretty sporadic, right? You have a very massive spike over here around 200 megabytes a second, then you have a quiet time, and again, a spike. So this is a really good candidate for both autoscaling and smaller instance types. So looking at other metrics that you see here, for example, shuffle across executors. That's a very important metric to gauge performance and scalability of ETL workloads. And
All right,
we
that's
have
really, really cool. It is. And I know Glue Streaming ETL just came out on July 19th, so just a few days ago. And then we also have Glue now supports smaller instance types. And you did a really good job demonstrating both of that for us today. But we do have to move on. And I'm sorry for cutting you off here, but thank you so much for the demo. Thank you so much. And
2 minutes to summarize.
everyone
Uh,
who's tuning in, thank you for being here. We have Amazon SageMaker feature store coming up right next. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you. Thanks, Roman.